Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Weekly Coder. I'm Chris, and today we are going to implement another mechanic to our Pac-Man game, and that is to allow Pac-Man to consume the energizer pellets so that once he does, the ghosts basically turn blue and they go into what's known as frightened mode. In frightened mode, the ghosts are vulnerable to Pac-Man, and Pac-Man can eat them. And they move slower, and they stop chasing Pac-Man. Okay, so that's what we're going to do in this tutorial. We're not going to add any collision detection, so Pac-Man won't actually be able to eat the ghosts, and the ghosts still can't hurt Pac-Man. But that's something that we're probably going to do in another tutorial. So for now, what we're going to do is we're going to add graphics that will help. That'll actually make all of this happen. And what we're going to need are two animations. Okay. So 4 graphics total, 2 animations. One's going to be blue, the other's going to be white, because after the ghosts turn blue to go into frightened mode, right before they come back, they'll flash between blue and white for just a few seconds before they turn back to normal colors and resume chasing Pac-Man around the board. So we need those 2 graphics. So what we're going to do is in the ghosts folder, in graphics, we're going to create 2 folders. We're going to create a folder called frightened, and we're going to create a folder called white. And we're going to do the same thing in the ghosts folder under animations. Okay. So we're going to create a folder called frightened and a folder called white. Alright. So now we can go ahead and bring in our graphics, which I have over here. We've got Scared 1 and Scared 2, and those obviously are going to go into Frightened in the graphics folder. I didn't actually name them properly, and something happened. Oh yeah, there we go. Frightened, and then I've got the White 1 and White 2, and those are going to go into the White folder. And then we need to go into the Frightened folder, select both of these, change the pixels per unit to 16, and change the filter to point. And we're going to do the same thing for white. Select them both, change pixels per unit to 16, and the filter to point. Alright, so now we're going to go to the Frightened folder. We're going to drag up Scared 1 into the scene. And then we're going to need our animation window. Okay, so we're going to go to Window, click Animation, and we're going to drag that down to here. And with the Frightened mode, our Scared 1 ghost selected, we're going to click Create. And we're going to put this in our animation folder, which is right here in Ghosts under Frightened. And we're going to name this Frightened. Okay. Save. I'm going to add a property, sprite renderer, sprite. Okay, then we've got these 2 already in here, so we're going to drag Scared 2. I'm going to put him at the 12th frame, drag the other one down to frame 24, test our animation, and it looks good. So we can delete Scared 1 from the hierarchy. Alright, now we're going to do the same thing for white. Drag white. Click Create. Okay. There we go. Click Create. And then we're going to go white, and we're going to save it as white. Click Save. Add property, sprite renderer, sprite. Alright, so we've got 2 of the whites in here. Then we're going to drag white 2. Position at frame 12. Drag this one to frame 24, test our animation, and looks good. So we're going to delete white 1 from the hierarchy. Alright, so now if we look in our animations folder, we've got Frightened, we've got an animator controller and an animation clip. And for white, we've got an animator controller and an animation clip. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is we need to actually go into our script, the Ghost script, and add those properties for those runtime controllers for the white and the for the white and the frightened. So right here, where we've got our runtime controllers, we're going to add public runtime animator controller ghost white and public runtime animator controller ghost blue. Okay, so with those two added, we can go ahead and let's go ahead and assign these in Unity, okay, so that we don't forget to later. So we'll go in our hierarchy and we'll select all the ghosts, okay, and we'll see that we now have ghost white and ghost blue runtime animator controller properties, and we're going to go ahead and assign these. So in the animations folder, we're going to go to frightened, and we're going to drag the animator controller for frightened into ghost blue, and we're going to drag the animator controller for white into ghost white. Okay, so with those done, we can go ahead and go back to our scripts, so the ghost script, and the way that we're going to do this is first we need to add something in our update animator controller method. The update animator controller method is called, I think, from the move method, and every time the ghosts make a new movement, we update the animator controller and check which direction the ghost is going in, and then we set the animator controller animation based on that. We don't want to do that while the ghosts are in scared mode, because in scared mode they are going to be blue, and they're all going to be blue, and their direction isn't going to matter because their eyes aren't going to change and nothing else is going to change. So the ghosts will just have this little animation of going back and forth like this, and that'll just be that. So we don't want to change them based on direction. So we have to add some logic here. So we go if current mode doesn't equal mode.frightened, okay, and indent this, then we want to do these updates, okay? Otherwise, if it does equal mode.frightened, then we want to set our animator, the runtime animator controller property to ghost blue, okay? And that's going to switch our animation clip from all of these colors and directions to just ghost blue. So the next thing we need to do is we need to look at our change mode method here. Okay, so we've got this change mode method, and that basically is called when the mode needs to change. So what we're going to do is, because we have to actually initiate this from the Pac-Man script, because the Pac-Man script knows when a pellet that is an energizer pellet is consumed. So from the Pac-Man script is where we're going to need to initialize this whole like frightened mode thing. So we're going to create another method. So it's going to be a public method. It's going to be a void. And the reason it's public is so that we can access it from the Pac-Man script. So then we'll just call this start frightened mode. Okay. So in the start frightened mode, we're going to call change mode, and we're going to pass in mode.frightened. Okay. So right now all this is doing is it's just changing the mode. All right. So it's saying change mode to frightened, because we've got this parameter that we're passing in mode.frightened right here, M, and then current mode equals M. And that's it. That's how we get the ghosts to be in frightened mode. So we have to actually call this method. So we're going to go into our Pac-Man script, and right here in the consume pellet method, we've got this if statement here that is basically telling us, hey, if the tile wasn't consumed and the tile is a pellet or a super pellet, then we do this stuff, which is to update our pellets consumed and all this other stuff that we're doing here. So the other thing we want to do here is we want to grab all the ghosts, And then we want to, for each of the ghosts, we want to call that start frightened mode method so that they all get their frightened mode started. So the way that we do that is we basically game object. Okay, so we're going to create an array of game objects. Okay, so game object, and then we're going to put these two brackets here to indicate that we're creating an array of game objects. We're going to call it ghosts equals game object dot find game objects with tag. Okay, so make sure it's objects because that's what returns a game object array. So find game objects with tag, and the tag that we tagged these ghosts with is just ghost. Okay. So now that we've got our ghosts array full of ghosts, all we need to do is we need to create a for each loop, and we're going to say game object, and we're going to just call it go in ghosts. So for every game object that's in the ghosts array, all right, we want to do something with this game object. And the thing that we want to do is we want to call the start frightened mode method. So the way that we do that is we do go.getComponent, and we're going to get the ghost script that's on that ghost game object, and we're going to do start frightened mode is what we're going to call the method. And that's it. That's all we have to do in the Pac-Man script, is just basically call the start frightened mode for every ghost that's on the game board, and that should turn all the ghosts blue. So let's have a look and see what that looks like, huh? So we're going to go back to Unity. We can close this animation window, by the way. So get that out of the way. So we'll go ahead and click play. So I'm going to turn the volume down. And apparently something is very, very wrong here. Alright, so before we do anything else, I noticed that we've got some debug statements running still here, so let's go ahead and get rid of those. We're logging the direction. Okay, so let's get rid of that. And let's try and figure out what happened here and let's just see what's going on. So update animator controller. So the only thing that's telling our ghost to be in frightened mode is this method here. And the only time that we do that is when, well, now it makes more sense because we're doing this for tile.isSuperPellet. We're doing it for both, whether it's a pellet or a super pellet. Well, we only want to do it if it's a super pellet. So we're going to go up here and we're going to say if tile.isSuperPellet. I'm going to indent this stuff. Okay, so you understand what I'm doing here is I'm saying that only if the tile is a super pellet do we want to get all the ghosts, and then for each of the ghosts do we want to start frightened mode. Okay, so let's go back into Unity. Click play. Alright, so now we're good. Now we're going to go check and see what happens. Okay, so apparently they're not changing to frightened mode until they're out of the ghost house. So let's have a look and see why that's happening. just have a look at my notes here. Okay, so I believe the problem is that we did not... Yes, we did not. So in our change mode, let's make sure that we call update animator controller, because otherwise update animator controller doesn't get called until the ghost actually moves. So that's why they're not updating if they're in the ghost house, because they're not moving. So let's save that and let's try again. Alright, so they're all colorful, and now they're all in scared mode. Alright, so there's something that we've got to do, and that is because they're really fast. So even in scared mode, we want them to go a little slower so Pac-Man can actually catch them easier. So what we're going to do is in the ghost script, we're going to create up at the top where we've got move speed. We're going to, and we should probably set this to 5.9. We're going to create another variable, and we're going to make it public, and it's going to be a float, and we're going to call it frightened mode move speed. Now let's set that one to 2.9f, okay? So we probably will need... We're going to need a previous move speed. So we're going to create another one. It's going to be a private float, and we're just going to call it previous move speed. Okay? And we're not going to set it equal to anything. And then in our change mode method, okay, we are going to I'm going to change our move speed. So we're going to say if the current mode equals mode.frightened, then we're going to set our move speed equal to the previous move speed. And then we're going to check and see if M equals frightened mode. And if it does, we're going to set our previous move speed to our current move speed. And we're going to set our move speed equal to our frightened move speed. And we're also going to set previous mode equal to current mode, and current mode equal to M. And that's going to be used later, but I just wanted to finish it up, okay, so that we have this stuff in here already. The way that this works is we're going to check our current mode, okay? So if change mode is called, and our current mode is mode.frightened, that means that we're probably not changing into frightened mode, okay? Or we're already in it, in which case this doesn't matter. Then, if we are in frightened mode, we're going to set our move speed equal to the previous move speed. And the previous move speed is going to equal to the move speed, okay? So the move speed being 5.9 originally is going to be changed to 3.9 if the change mode is called with the parameter it's passed in as mode.frightened. Because if we're not in the frightened mode and we're either in scattered or chase mode, then we're going to probably, well, we're going to pass in frightened mode if we're going to call this. And if it is, then we're going to set the move speed, okay, equal to the previous move speed to just create a reference to what our move speed was. And then we're going to set our move speed equal to the frightened mode move speed, which is going to be 2.9. So that's going to make them go slower. So let's have a look and see what that looks like. Alright, see how fast they're going? Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and collect that. And see how slow they're going now? So they're going extremely slow. So we could totally catch them. See? We could catch them all. They can't run from Pac-Man. Okay. So the next thing we gotta do is we have to actually get them out of frightened mode. Because right now, they're just in frightened mode forever, and you know, that's not really cool. We need to actually give them a way to get out of frightened mode. And for that, we're gonna need to add a few variables. And what we're going to do is we're going to go back into our Ghost script, and we're going to go up to the top where our variables are. And right here in our timers, we're going to create some more. We're going to create a frightened mode duration. Okay, so frightened mode duration. I'm going to set that equal to 10 seconds. And then we're going to create another one, and we're going to call this one start blinking at, and we're going to set that one to 7 seconds. The start blinking at we're going to use to basically say, hey, you know, we are going to start blinking at 7 seconds into frightened mode duration. So, and there's probably a better way to do this, and that is to set like start blinking at like with a negative, or I mean, this is all public, so we can set them in the inspector, but you know, we'll just leave them like this for now. Frightened mode duration at 10 and start blinking at 7. Okay, and then what we're gonna do is we need to actually add a couple of private timers, and that's to keep track of the time. So we're gonna create a float that is going to be a frightened mode timer, and we're going to set that to 0, and then we're going to create a blink timer, and we're going to set that to 0 as well. And finally, we're going to create a boolean, and we're going to call this one frightened mode is white. I'm going to set it equal to false. Alright, so the frightened mode timer is just going to keep track of how long the timer for frightened mode has been running. The blink timer is going to keep track of how long the current image for the blinking has been used for, and you're going to see that in a second. This one is going to keep track of if it's currently white or blue. Okay, sort of similar how we did the alternating sounds. So all we've got to do now is we need to go into our method, our mode update method, and we've got this else statement here: if current mode equals frightened. If it does, we're going to start our frightened mode timer. We're going to increment that by time.delta time, and then we're going to say if frightened mode timer is greater than or equal to frightened mode duration. Okay, so basically if it's exceeded the amount of time that it's supposed to run, then we're going to reset the frightened mode timer back to 0, and we're going to change mode to previous mode. And the reason that I say previous mode is, and that's why I had this statement here, previous mode equals current mode. When we're changing the mode, okay, we want to go back to not scattered or frightened. We want to go back to whatever it was. So if it was scattered, then we want to go back to scattered, and if it was frightened, we want to go back to frightened. So that's why we store that previous mode, okay? And from here, let's see, we're going to close that if statement. And we're going to do another if statement, and we're going to say frightened mode timer is greater than or equal to blink, or start blinking at. I don't know why I want to keep saying start blink at. It's stupid. If this is true, then we're going to say blink timer plus equals time.delta time. Okay. And then we just need to set it so that if it exceeds a certain amount of time, it's going to switch between the two blue and whites. Okay. So we're going to say if blink timer is greater than or equal to, let's use 0.1f. That's going to make it blink really fast, so every 1/10 of a second. Then we're going to reset blink timer equal to 0. And if frightened mode is white, frightened mode is, I did it again, is white, then we need to change the blue, otherwise we need to change the white. So if it's white, then we want to do transform.getComponent animator runtime animator controller, and we're going to set it equal to ghost blue. And we're going to say frightened mode is white equals false. And then in the else statement, we're going to say transform.getComponent animator runtime animator controller ghost white. Oops. And frightened mode is white equals true. And hopefully you guys understand this logic. Basically we're saying this Boolean value, if it's true, then the ghost is white, so we want to change him to blue, and we want to set this Boolean value to false, so that the next time this is checked in 1/10 of a second, it's going to go into this else statement and say, oh, this is false, so we're going to go in here, and we're going to set the ghost to white, and then we're going to say that we're going to set this Boolean back to true, so that in another 1/10 of a second it gets checked and it sets it back to blue. So it's just going to alternate between blue and white. So hopefully we've done everything correctly. We're going to go ahead and press play and see what happens. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and grab that energizer pellet. And they are scared, moving slowly. And here they go blinking. And they are not back to normal. They are not back to normal. They did not go back to normal because that doesn't make any sense. So the current mode previous mode, current mode equals M. So for changing frightened mode timer, change mode to previous mode. So we're saying change mode to previous mode is the parameter we're passing in. We're saying current mode equals M, which I'm sure is wrong now. Yep. That's what we're doing wrong. We're setting current mode to M, and then we're setting previous mode to current mode. Then we're setting current mode to M again. Alright, so let's try that. Alright, now let's see if they start blinking and go back to normal. Blink, 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 blink. And normal. Okay, awesome. And now they're all out. And they're scared. Oh no, they're fast again. And they're scared. Okay, so we've got this now 100% working, which is awesome. Because this is another huge step forward in the game. The only one thing that we've got left to do is to animate the super pellets like they are in the original Pac-Man, because that's how they indicate, hey, come get me, I'm a super pellet, because it's a super pellet, so it's blinking and it wants to be gotten. So maybe we'll do that. We'll do that in the next tutorial. Okay, we'll make the super pellets animate so that they're blinking. And the other thing that we're going to do in the next tutorial is to add, to change the background sound when, because I don't have the background sound prepared right now. I completely spaced out on that. So we're going to, in the next tutorial, we're going to set it so the background sound is going to change when they're in scared mode. And we're going to animate the pellets. And then I'm hoping that we're going to do collision detection so that at the very least, collision detection as far as the ghost being able to hurt Pac-Man. So with that, I'm going to leave you guys to it. Have fun with this tutorial. Hope you liked it. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Comments go down below. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you guys next week.